Hey everybody, today we're going to do a simple feeding video here of my 125 gallon native tank. Because of the garden tank, which is what you can hear so loudly behind you, I'm not able to get the camera really far enough away from the 125 here to get the whole tank in frame. So I'm going to focus on feeding the surface first. So we're going to get to see all the crazy splishing and splashing and the fish going nuts in the water column, and then I'm going to throw some algae wafers in to sink to the bottom while that's going on, and then I'm going to go around and feed the rest of the room. And hopefully while I'm doing that we'll get to see some of the crayfish come out. I just put some crayfish in there fairly recently. I think today we will throw the floating cichlid pellets in there. They always go really crazy when I do that. And I can just throw a whole bunch in one quick handful and leave them to it. So they know it's coming. So while they're busy working on that, I'm going to throw some algae wafers in, and I will actually throw the algae wafers all towards the center of the tank today rather than what I normally do, which is kind of spread them out from one end to the other. I'll just kind of dump them down in the middle, and I'm sure the animals will come along and pick them up and carry them around and spread them out anyway. I usually leave some intact, and then I break some up into smaller chunks. If I break them up too small, the fish just gobble them up before they even hit the bottom though, so I tend to leave them fairly large in this tank, and I'm going to throw a big handful in right now. So hopefully that will draw out some crayfish here over the next few minutes. In fact, I can see one right there. It's dead center of the tank. I'm not sure where it is on the screen, and we've got one that just came out of its hole off to the right, which I'm pretty sure is off camera. Yeah, we're definitely off camera. There's a little crayfish right here. I'm pretty sure that one's in camera. And there's another one in a cave right over here. If you keep your eyes open, this one might come out. This is a pretty big one here. And then meanwhile, as I said, I'm going to get on with feeding my other tanks. I feel like I just did so much video in here yesterday. I did that 30-minute round the world update. I really don't feel like there's anything for me to talk about in the fish room today. This is actually my first time getting in here, so besides setting the camera up, I haven't actually really spent any time in here at all today. I don't really know if there even is anything to talk about. If you can see where the high-fin spotted pleco is, I don't know if that's coming out on camera, but right next to that, to the left of that, is a crayfish crawling around. There's a little point of interest on the bottom of the tank there. And in just a minute I'll be finished with feeding everybody else, and we'll go ahead and take the camera off the tripod and we'll be able to get a little closer look at the tank. But first I got to make my rounds. I am going to actually slide the camera over to the right a little bit. And I think we can see the crayfish off to the right of the tank now. he's moving from the right to the left. Over here collecting up snails for butterbean. I'd actually considered shooting a video butterbean eating some snails, but I got that red cyanobacteria growing in there, and it's growing on the glass, and I would have probably had to clean the tank before I started getting any kind of video of it, so I just decided we'll go ahead and do this tank tonight. Hopefully in the next couple of days I'll be getting in there doing some work on the brackish tank. So we'll get that cleaned up and looking good again. It's getting bad enough that I'm going to have to do another treatment. I use the ChemiClean, and it says it's for the red cyanobacteria, but I've used it for the red and the green, and it just works great for either. Sorry about that, I have a tank in the other room. I had to run in and get fed while I'm down here doing this. So my tank in the other room actually has some rainbow fish in it, and I was originally going to put them in my 125 over here, not the 125 gallon native tank, but my 125 gallon African themed tank, and I was going to put them in there because I've already got some rainbow fish in there. But if I do, I'm just going to have to wait so long because some of them are so small. I'm just afraid my Tenopoma will eat them. So I don't know if I want to keep them in quarantine for another year while I wait for them to become full grown, which is about how big they need to be before they'd be safe from that Tenopoma, you know, or at least approaching full grown. So I might put them in another tank. I don't really know which one I would put them in. I'm kind of leaning towards my Black Ghost Knifefish tank. That's nice and lush and green. Looks almost jungly in there. I think it would look nice having some rainbow fish swimming around in there. And as of right now, they're still not very big, so the 40-gallon tank wouldn't be much of an issue. By the time they're full grown, they might need something a little bigger than a 40-gallon tank. I'm not entirely sure what species rainbow fish they are. I was given them by one of my viewers. So I think they're the ones that are sold at PetSmart as the Australian rainbow fish. So whatever species that is, I'm not sure. But they probably get about 4 to 5 inches like most rainbow fish, and if that's the case, then, you know, a 40-gallon tank's kind of small by the time they're full grown. And I know I said that I could get the camera off the tripod and we could have a look around when I was finished, so we'll go ahead and do that, but it doesn't really look like there's a whole lot to look at. Oh, there's a crayfish still out, sitting up on that rock. And if you'll remember from my video the other day, for my regular viewers anyway, I had talked about how this pile of rocks down here made for a good cave for a crayfish, provided they excavate it. And look what we've got already. Somebody has agreed with me and gotten in there and dug that out. That's where, when I kept talking about there was a crayfish coming out from the right off camera, before I moved the camera over, that's where he came up and out of that little hole. So that is definitely somebody's little crayfish hidey hole now. We've got that one on the rock back there. You can see this one down here. Well, we had the one on the rock back there. He's making a run for it. Then we've got this one down here. I'm also noticing now that I'm in here looking closely, if you look right where that fish just was, there is some broken up piece of claw down on the substrate. So that probably means we've got at least one less crayfish in here than we used to. really love that pleco. Let's see, we got that crayfish that was making a run for it is now back here, up in amongst the Java fern, so he's probably going to get in there and eat up on that Java fern some more. I throw a lot of algae wafers in this tank for that purpose, to try to partially to keep this algae eater happy, and partially to keep the crayfish from devouring the plants. I've got a bunch of Java fern that I've got for sale, but if I don't get anybody that's interested in it soon, I might be throwing a bunch more in here just to get it in the tank so it's in there, and slowly it'll get worked down and eaten up. Same thing happens with my floating water sprite. I usually have a large mass of floating water sprite in here, but over time it just gets munched and nibbled, and I wind up with this sort of floating mat of gunk. So at some point I'll pull that out and I'll throw another big branch in there, another big piece or something, and it's probably about time to do that with some more Java fern, get some more going on in here. So here's the one I had pointed to earlier and said you might see him come out. It does not look like he's come out of his little hiding spot down there, and if the fish ever get out of the way, we will see that he's got some really blue claws, and some really big blue claws. So that's a really pretty crayfish. I can't wait to see that one out and about a little more. Although, considering the fact that this is the end of the tank that the chubs usually spend most of their time hanging out, I mean, I don't know, if I was a crayfish, I don't know if I necessarily want to crawl out into that. That's pretty daunting right there. That's pretty intimidating if I was a crayfish. So that's a whole lot of predators right over his head. So there you go, everybody. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Make sure you subscribe, that way you won't miss anything from me. You never know what it's going to be on this channel. So thanks again for watching this one. Don't forget, this is my 125-gallon native tank. Not really sure what all that splashing was about. Some of the fish over here apparently realized there's still some more floating pellets on the surface and went over and attacked them, and that's what all that splashing noise was. If that came out on camera, I thought someone was getting attacked over there, but it wasn't. It was just the fish splashing at the surface. So again, make sure you're subscribed, that way you won't miss anything. And then don't forget, this one is, of course, my 125-gallon native tank. So thanks again, hope you enjoyed, and I will see you real soon on the next one.